Starting off my list for the LA Angels, I have Anthony Rendon. Let's start this off with what could possibly end up being one of the worst contracts in Major League Baseball history when all is said and done, Anthony Rendon. He's on a 7-year, $245 million contract and has yet again gone through an injury-riddled season and even got into a scuffle with a fan at the beginning of the year that resulted in a 4-game suspension. Overall, Rendon was limited to 43 games this year, and while he did post a .361 on base, his best since 2020, he only hit .236 with a .318 slugging. For the Houston Astros, I have Jose Abreu. Speaking of bad contracts, the Astros signed Jose Abreu to a 3-year, $58.5 million contract this past offseason, and so far, it's been quite underwhelming. While he has topped his home run and RBI numbers from 2022, his slash line is down across the board, only hitting .235 with a .295 on base and a .371 slugging, along with a career-worst 83 WRC+. For the Oakland A's, I have Ken Waldichuk. Let's be real, the Oakland A's this year will go down as one of the worst teams of all time, but I was expecting more out of Ken Waldichuk, one of the Yankees' top pitching prospects that came back in the Frankie Montas trade. In his first full season, he has an ERA and FIP both over 5, while walking close to 5 batters per 9. For the Toronto Blue Jays, I have Alek Manoah. After a great rookie season in 2021 and a great season last year that saw him finish 3rd in Cy Young voting, Alek Manoah has come completely off the rails with an ERA of 5.87, a FIP of 6.02, and 6 walks per 9. After being sent down to rookie ball earlier in the year to work on his mechanics, it looked like he had turned a corner after coming back up, but was later sent back down to AAA after more inconsistencies, a move he was unhappy with. He never reported to AAA, wasn't throwing any bullpens or side sessions, and is now done for the season. What a disaster. For the Atlanta Braves, I have Colin McHugh. It's hard to find any disappointing players on this great Braves team, but I think Colin McHugh has underperformed this year. Last year, he was a key piece in the Braves bullpen, posting a 2.60 ERA with a 2.71 FIP with under 2 walks per 9. This year, though, his ERA has climbed to a 4.30, while his FIP has jumped up to a 4.09, along with his strikeouts per 9 dropping and his walks per 9 increasing. For the Milwaukee Brewers, I have Rowdy Tellez. When it comes to Rowdy Tellez, his overall slash line wasn't anything amazing in 2022, but his slugging was at a decent .461 while hitting 35 homers and driving in 89 runs. This year, though, his slugging has dropped to .378 and he only has 13 homers. For the St. Louis Cardinals, I have Miles Mikolas. The Cardinals have been an extremely disappointing team this year, so it was difficult to pick out just one guy, but I'll go with Miles Mikolas. Wainwright has also been extremely disappointing, but I'll give him a break since he's in his retirement year. Mikolas, though, has seen both his ERA and FIP jump up to a 4.88 and 4.33 this year. For the Chicago Cubs, I have Jameson Taillon. I think people forget that Jameson Taillon was a coveted free agent this past offseason, but he has been underwhelming in his first season for the Cubs. After posting some decent numbers with the Yankees last season, they have all jumped up this year, with his ERA sitting at 5.27 and FIP at 4.73. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, I have Alek Thomas. It's still early in Alek Thomas's career, but I was hoping to see more out of him by now, considering he was at one point the number 2 prospect in the D-back system, according to Baseball America, and he played in 113 games in 2022. After a tough start this year, though, he was sent down to the minors and hasn't been able to do much overall this year, hitting .236 with a .668 OPS. For the LA Dodgers, I have Julio Urias. Urias was arrested for the second time in early September for domestic violence, resulting in his tenure with the Dodgers basically done. The Dodgers themselves trying to erase anything they can of his existence with the team and quite possibly ending his career in Major League Baseball. Even before this, Urias was having a down year, posting a 4.60 ERA and a 4.69 FIP, his worst numbers since an injury-riddled 2017. For the San Francisco Giants, I have Brandon Crawford. I know Giants fans love Brandon Crawford, but after a down season last year, after a very good 2021 season, I was hoping for Crawford to get some of his numbers back up this year. Instead, his batting average has dipped below 200 for the first time in his career, and he has an OPS of 597, his worst since his rookie season in 2011. On a bright note, he is playing great defense, ranking 10th overall in Fangraph defense among all shortstops. For the Cleveland Guardians, I have Andrés Giménez. Speaking of good defensive players, Andrés Giménez is one, but his bat also has dipped this season. After a breakout year in 2022, Giménez has seen his numbers come back down to earth this year, only posting a .249 batting average and a .707 OPS, much lower numbers compared to his 2022 campaign. For the Seattle Mariners, I have Jarred Kelenic. We've all been waiting for former top prospect Jarred Kelenic to finally break out, and this year it looked like he was until he kicked a water cooler and broke his foot. He got off to a hot start, hitting .300 in April, but saw his numbers steadily decline over the next few months and missed all of August with a fractured foot. For the Miami Marlins, I have Edward Cabrera. The Marlins have had some great pitching this year, but I was hoping for more from Edward Cabrera. Tabbed by many as a breakout candidate this year, including myself because of his great stuff, Cabrera hasn't fully lived up to the hype. Overall, he's posting over 10 strikeouts per 9, but he's walking a whopping 6 per 9 with an ERA of 4.35 and a FIP of 4.52. For the New York Mets, I have Brett Baty. In the beginning of the year, Mets fans were outraged at Brett Baty not starting the year in the major leagues after a great spring. But after coming up a little later, the former number 2 prospect for the Mets hasn't amounted to much. Overall, over 97 games, he's only hitting .212 with a .596 OPS and 7 homers, and was also sent back down to the minors in early August. For the Washington Nationals, I have Patrick Corbin. I feel like this is a yearly occurrence, but as long as Patrick Corbin is making as much money as he is and continues to post poor numbers, he will hold this crown. At the time of this recording, Corbin has an ERA of 5.00, his 3rd straight season with an ERA of at least 5. Speaking of disappointments, today's sponsor is the opposite of that, and that's Factor. As someone that molds young minds for my day job, along with working on this channel, as well as trying to find time to get to the gym, Factor meals have helped me out greatly when it comes to saving time. If you're too busy to cook but still want to eat well this upcoming fall, Factor could be a great option for you as well. With Factor meals, you're able to skip going to the grocery store, prepping your meals, as well as save time on all the cleanup. All you gotta do is pop them in the microwave and they're ready in literally 2 minutes. Yes, 2 minutes. Factor meals are prepared by actual chefs and packed with nutrition and protein to help me recover my broken body between workouts. There's over 34 different fresh and never frozen options to choose from. You can go with flavor-packed gourmet options with premium ingredients like broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, asparagus, and more. For me, my personal favorite is the loaded bacon shredded chicken. You can even choose from calorie-conscious options with less than 550 calories per meal, which have been great for my fluffy self in the past to help lose some pounds. To save 50% on your first box of meals, head to factor75.com or click the link in the description down below and use the code HYDE50. For the Baltimore Orioles, I have Cedric Mullins. It's hard to find a disappointment with the Orioles this year considering how solid they've been, but I was hoping for more out of Cedric Mullins this year. While his numbers aren't bad, I was hoping he could get back to those 2021 numbers that got him into the All-Star game after having a down 2022 season. Instead, while his slugging has creeped up a bit from last year to .445, he's still only hitting .248 with a .321 on base. For the San Diego Padres, I have Manny Machado. Machado's season has had it all. Injuries, a decline in numbers from last season, as well as reports of being a problem in the clubhouse. While he does have 28 home runs, his slash line is way down from last season, only batting .250 with an on-base of .314, a slugging of .453, and a WRC plus of .111. To make matters worse, this is all coming after he signed that 11-year, $350 million extension in the offseason. For the Philadelphia Phillies, I have Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola was coming off a World Series run in 2022 into a contract year in 2023, hoping to put up some good numbers before free agency. He's done quite the opposite though, laboring through 30 starts to a 4.62 ERA and a 4.19 FIP, while seeing his strikeouts go down and his walks go up. While I still think he'll get a good contract in the offseason because of his track record and he's shown to be durable in his career, I was expecting better numbers from him in 2023. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, I have Bryan Reynolds. This one might be a hot take because Bryan Reynolds isn't having a bad season at all, but I wanted to see more out of him. At the time of this recording, he's hitting .271 with a .334 on base and a .473 slugging with 22 homers and 77 RBIs. However, after signing a long-term deal, I was expecting numbers closer to his 2021 campaign that saw him post a 6.0 Fangraph WAR, but this year, he's only posted a 2.4 Fangraph WAR. For the Texas Rangers, I have Jacob deGrom. This one was hard for me to put because I don't like considering a guy a disappointment if he gets injured, but with deGrom, having to get yet another Tommy John surgery in the first year of a massive deal is an absolute bummer. Granted, he was pitching well before going down, but a player's number one ability is simply being available. With DeGrom making as much money as he is, it is disappointing considering he's hurt yet again. For the Tampa Bay Rays, I have Wander Franco. Like the Julio Urias pick earlier, Wander Franco fits in the same category of why he's a disappointment this year. The difference with Franco, though, is he was having a very good season until he was accused of having relations with an underage girl. The latest we know on this situation is he was placed on administrative leave and the case is under investigation, but at this point, we have no idea if Wander Franco will ever step foot on a Major League Baseball field ever again. For the Boston Red Sox, I have Chris Sale. Ever since Chris Sale struck out Manny Machado to win the 2018 World Series, he hasn't been the same picture. After two injury-riddled seasons in 2021 and 2022, it's been more of the same this season as he's battled shoulder issues as well as a dip in his stuff. While his strikeout and walk numbers have been good and his FIP and xFIP are much lower than his ERA, Sale's inability to stay on the field and dip in stuff has led to a lot of frustration. For the Cincinnati Reds, I have Jonathan India. It wasn't too long ago that Jonathan India won a Rookie of the Year award, but since then, he hasn't been able to produce the same results and was even being shopped by the Reds at the trade deadline this season. Overall, he's producing similar results to the down year he had in 2022, hitting .241 with a .330 on base and a .400 slugging. While he does have a decent 16 home runs, his overall numbers are still far away from his Rookie of the Year numbers in 2021. For the Colorado Rockies, I have Chris Bryant. Since signing with Colorado in 2022, health has not been on the side of Chris Bryant. In a small sample size in 2022, he hit .306 with an .851 OPS over 42 games, but this year, he's only hit .243 with a .325 on base and a .379 slugging. I would say his fractured finger is a big reason for this, but it's still disappointing considering the money he was signed for. For the Kansas City Royals, I have Drew Waters. The Royals themselves have been awful this year, but I was hoping to see a breakout season from Drew Waters. After the former top Braves prospect was traded to the Royals in 2022, he had a decent slugging of .479 over 32 games, but hasn't been able to carry it over to the season, only posting a slugging of .392. For the Detroit Tigers, I have Javier Baez. Javier Baez has been the butt of many jokes this year, but for good reason, whether it's swinging at countless terrible pitches or being thrown out on the bases in embarrassing fashion, it's easy to say Javier Baez has been a bust for the Tigers. Overall this year, he's only hitting .217 with an OPS of .583. While he has played some great defense, the bat has been extremely underwhelming. For the Minnesota Twins, I have Carlos Correa. Correa had quite the offseason, becoming a new member of not just the Giants, but the Mets as well, before he ended up going back to the Twins due to failed physicals with both San Fran and New York. While he's had a couple of hot stretches this season, his second season with the Twins has been subpar. Overall, he's only hitting .230 with an OPS of .711, the worst numbers of his career. For the Chicago White Sox, I have Tim Anderson. From one shortstop to another and to another disappointing team, Tim Anderson hasn't just been knocked out this year, but he's also having a down year. He has hit better in the second half, but overall, he's been very inconsistent, putting together a batting average of .252 and an OPS of .600, the worst OPS of his career. And last but not least, for the New York Yankees, I have Giancarlo Stanton. The Yankees have been quite the disappointment themselves this year, but you could argue Stanton has been one of the most underwhelming acquisitions for a team of all time, and this year isn't helping him at all. Overall, he has the worst batting average of his career with a .188 and the worst OPS of his career with a .695. If he doesn't get it together moving forward, Stanton could end up being one of the biggest busts for the Yankees of all time. So that's my list. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Would you switch out any of these players? Let me know. But that's all I have for this video. If you can, on the way out, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.